Check out this Crapless Crap strategy. It's designed to cover every possible dice combination except for the 7. We're at a $10 table. Everything gets $10. That's except for the 6 and 8, of course, because those need to be divisible by 6 because they get paid 7 to 6. And also the 3 and the 11, they get paid 11 to 4. So they need to be made in multiples of 4 for a proper payout. So to cover all of these numbers, we've got $108 on the table. And the idea here is to get 3 hits and then regress. And because in Crapless, every number is covered, that means it's actually just 3 rolls. It's not just 3 hits. Because if we were at a regular craps table, we'd be looking for those hits between 4 and 10, which could, of course, take longer. So it should be interesting to see the difference here when we're in a crapless game. By the way, my name is Matt, and here on Dice Data, I run simulations of craps and roulette systems. And I do this because I really want to find out what you could win or lose in the end, and you can't really tell that when you do just a single rollout. So today, I'm going to just quickly show you how the system works, and then we're going to look at the output from the 100,000 bot experiment. All of this comes from Color Up, so check out Jeremy's video below. He explains the play a lot better than I do because I'm, of course, more focused on the numbers. If you want to follow along with the data, here is the QR code. I'm going to click Surprise Me, and let's see who we got. Juiced Kingpin, bot number 51,617. So let's see how Juiced Kingpin does. So get set up with $108 across, waiting for the point though, and nothing's working right now. Point's going to be 9. First hit's going to be 11. Now, it does matter where these hits are, so remember that it's 11. Second hit's going to be a 4, wins $18. That's 9 to 5. Third hit's going to be a 10, another $18. Okay, so now we are going to pull the 2, 3, 11, and 12 in profit for the shooter at this point. Another hit on the 6. I didn't have the 3 anymore there. There's the point of 9, so all our bets are going to go off. Now, actually, what I did forget to show is I did 2 versions of this. This first version is just flat betting, same betting after it gets out of the regression. But I do have another version that does a collect and press. So let's turn that on so we can actually see both of them play. Okay, so we get the same bot number, but notice the difference here. Here we have $24 on the 6 because it's already hit a couple times, $20 on the 9 here at that collect and press level. Same dice rolls, of course. So I'm expecting um, on really great runs for some bigger wins on the collect and press version. We'll compare both of those with 100,000 bots when we get down to it. So still on the first shooter, 17 rolls so far, but there's the 7 out. All right, second shooter has a point of 6. First hit's on the 10. Another hit on the 12. Nice. So I did mention that it matters how the regression happens. Let's look at the steps here. So we go $108 across on all the numbers. We ride it for 3 hits. On the third hit, we're going to regress depending on what actually hit. So if it's a 2 or 12, we're going to take down only the 2 or 12. And that's like if the 2 or 12 hit at all in those 3. And then the 3 through 11 actually stay working. So that's what actually happened here. So you can see we had the 12 hit. So now we've got everything from the 3 to 11 here working for us. If it's a 3 or 11 that hit, we take down the 2, 3, 11, and 12, keeping the 4 through 10 across and paid for. Otherwise, if all 3 hits were between 4 and 10, then we just go to that 44 inside. And of course, the collect and press is going to alternate, collecting first, pressing that number, collecting, pressing that number, and so on. And they're going to reset on each shooter with that 7 out. So that's basically what they're doing. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this one and kind of see how these guys end up because it looks like they might be in a good position. Oh, and interestingly, they actually the collect and press ended up just a couple dollars lower than the collect only. So it's an interesting outcome there. Sometimes the collect and press gets a little bit of aggressive and ends up losing because they're gonna have more money on the table. So it's interesting to see this. The difference with the collect and press is on a really, really hot shooter, a really, really hot sequence of shooters, they are going to win a ton of money, which we're going to see. So next, we're going to go into the outcome from 100,000 bots and see how they did. So again, if you want to follow along with the data, here's the QR code. You can actually see all of this data for free on dicedata.info. But if you subscribe, not only do you help out the channel, but you also get access to hundreds and hundreds of simulations that I don't have time to make videos for. So you get a whole bunch of stuff, $10 a month, and it really helps the channel. It helps me create these videos and keep all of this going. Now, here are the two simulations that I ran. Remember, the first version was just flat betting after it gets out of that regression position. And the second version is collect and press. Overall, when it comes to win rates, almost 41% won on the collect only version, and then just a couple percent lower than that on the collect and press version. But what's more interesting than how often they won is how much they won. And you can see that right here. So when it comes to the actual amounts they've won, the typical amount is a $64 loss on this side, $86 loss on that side, because of course the collect and press is taking a little bit more risk, putting more money out there, which can lose on the 7 out. If we look at the middle 90%, it's between 489 and 437. And on the right hand side, 506 to 507. So notice how it has increased the variance on both sides. Down below, we can see the middle 50%. So half the time, the outcomes were between this. They're playing for 10 shooters, remember. So between 248 and 130 there, and 270 and 124. Notice how it's actually, in this case, it's a little bit more towards the losses on the collect and press. And that is because there are some very few but very great wins. So the best win on this side, 1624. Best win on this side, $5,000, because there's a couple little, few bots that win a lot of money over in this longer tail. And that's what, pressing bets does here. So we go into the TrueScore. This kind of tells us all the aspects of what the strategy is. Look at the house edge. It is elevated here. So it's 4.02% on this side. And that's because we're dealing with place bets on the Crapless Craps. So here's the Wizard of Odds page on Crapless Craps. And look at this. Place 2 and 12, the house edge 7%. Place the 3 and 11, the house edge is 6.25%. And then when the pressing level gets up above $20, they're actually going to switch to buy bets. But those buy bets, we have commission only on wins. Those start to get really good. So 0.7% and 1.25%. So those are actually pretty good if the commission is paid only on wins. If the commission is paid always, a little bit higher than that. In this simulation, the commission is paid only on wins. And the reason that this is going a little bit lower is because as it's pressing those numbers up, it's more likely to press the 6 and 8. It's more likely to press those numbers that are at a lower house edge. And if it does press to the level of buy bets on the 2, 3, 4, and 11 and 12, when it gets into those auto buy territories, it's starting to lower the house edge again and getting back into a really good situation. So that's why the collect and press comes in at a lower blended house edge. Profit retention 43%, that's average. Jackpot factor is 4% on this side, but it's 5.9% on this side, and that's because, of course, the pressing strategy. Betting power is moderate, and that's the thing that you want to look at if you're looking for comps, because that's time at the table. How often do you recycle your money? Shooter win rate 52%. And that is because you're covering so many numbers. Remember, we saw 5 out of 6 rolls are going to win money. So more often than not, you're going to win money on individual shooters. And sometimes we even see this with regression strategies because they have a lot of money on the table. And because they have a lot of money on the table up front, they're getting out of the hand a lot faster. The problem is when they do lose a shooter, it's early on, and they're going to lose more than they tend to win when they get out of the shooter. Betting complexity is moderate. It starts to get complex over on this side because of the different variations in pressing. Crash factor is manageable, so you don't see these huge crashes. Volatility is mild on both of these. They're not huge swings in either direction. And replay grind rate is moderate as well. So let me actually show you that. So what this is looking at is the long-term grind rate. So we already saw after a single visit playing this strategy, 40% or so are going to win money. And as we get down into 20, still over 1 out of every 5 bots is in profit at that time. And it takes up to, close to 100 before they're getting down below 5%. That's 2 years of, going weekly to the casino. And once you get up here, this is when the house edge has had enough time to really take control. And at that point, there are no bots that are going to be in profit at that time. The house edge has done its mathematical magic and gotten all of the bots' money. How often were the bots able to multiply their buy-in? So we have the $400 recommended buy-in that I didn't go into, but I'll show you in just a minute. So how often were they able to double their money? 14.6% of the bots were able to do that. Just under a percent were able to triple. Less than 1 out of 1,000 was able to 5x. None of them were able to 10x it. Of course, I'm looking at the collect only. If we look at the collect and press, then we still get a very small amount. Less than 1 out of 1,000 was able to 10x their money on that. Here's the ride. 13% were always ahead. 26% recovered, so they went down and then they were able to get back. 55.5% gave back, and we're going to look at that a little bit more when we look at the win goals a little bit later. 5.7% never got above even. So those bots had a bad night at the casino. How the table ran. So this is a hot table strategy. 92.6% of the bots won on hot tables. Now, I do have to tell you, you don't know if a table is hot or cold until after the rolls are thrown. 1 out of every 3 won on choppy tables, nothing won on cold tables. That's, I'm sure, a lot of these bots down here. So how do these bots do for comps? So this is comps model. You can check this out as well on dicedata.info. It is free. So the typical average bet comes out to $91. So this is what the pit boss might see if they look down at the felt. And that's because it's not 108 because there is the regression. So on average, it's $91. On the high side, it's 104. On the low side, it is 82. So if we go with typical values here, 1.71 hours. If we're at 45 rolls per hour, 10 shooters, that's what that average is. On the high side, could be 2.5. On the low side, a little over 11. We'll go with typical here. 45 rolls per hour on average. If you're on a full table, you might be looking closer to 30. Empty table by yourself, you might be looking at 60. That's one throw a minute. So it can go a lot faster if you're by yourself. Rolls per decision, on average 4.19. The actual simulation is 5.14. And that is because a lot of these, 2, 3s, 11s, and 12s, when the point is there, it takes a little bit longer for the shooter to actually 7 out or win that point. Because there's just fewer combinations that are going to resolve that particular outcome. So true rolls per decision 5.14, 4.919 is an average that the casino might use. So with those numbers, we have a rated coin in of 1671 per session. That's basically all the money that was cycled through. And then if we calculate a house edge at 3.14, which is what a casino manager might use for a regular craps game, that's $52. But our actual house edge we know is higher than that. And then that would be an actual $80 theoretical loss. This is a little bit different than what I report in the other tables because, of course, the average bet is counted a little bit differently because of working and not working, things like that. All of that means $80 theoretical loss. If your casino is giving $20 reinvestment, that could be a $16. If they were giving 25%, they were a little more generous, 20% or $20, excuse me. And 3 sessions at $60. If you're going up to 20 sessions, maybe you're up at $400 or so. So that's how this works out. If the casino is only using these kind of like average casino values, they might be underrating the player. Now, this is crapless, and a lot of this is calibrated to regular craps games, which is in general is going to be a little bit of lower house edge depending on how you play. So this may not be entirely accurate, but this is a good estimate if you're curious about what you might get from your particular play. People always ask me, what is the right win goal and what is the right time to walk away? And that's always hard for me to answer because it's a little bit different for different people. And it kind of depends because there's always trade offs. This is a great tool because you can actually play with it for yourself and see how the numbers change and figure out what works for you. So we saw earlier, 40.9% win rate. Our typical win is $176. Typical loss is $211. And all of these bars are basically 100 bots, right? 100 bots in our experiment. So what we can do is actually take this win goal line and start dragging that down. And what this is going to do is create this win goal. So these bots are going to actually stop playing when they hit that win goal. So you notice it's going to truncate the biggest wins, right? Because you can't have those great wins if you're setting a win goal and then you're going to stop playing. What that does is it truncates the win goals, but it also increases the win for these ones that actually hit that level but went on to give it back. So you can see these ones with this lighter color, they would have ended up lower. These ones would have actually ended up in losses. So what it does is it actually increases this win rate. More bots are winning because they are not losing as much. But what it does is it also starts digging a bigger hole. So the bots that do lose, they lose a little bit more money. And that's how it balances to pay everything off so that the house edge still stays in effect, but the win rate and the amount of money that is won and lost will change depending on how you set these win goals. So if we drop it all the way down to $175, we can get the win rate over 50%. That's an increase of 12.2 percentage points. So that's a pretty big difference. The typical win on average, or actually, I should say the median typical win is $1 less. But now the losses are now $34 deeper. And 48 and 100 are actually going to hit that win goal. Some of them are still going to win less than that over their entire run. But notice that it's a lot of these smaller losses that are being taken. So the average loss given a loss is going to increase. And that's the recommended amount for the paycheck player because the paycheck player wants to have better than a 50% chance of walking away with a profit, even at the risk of potentially having a larger loss. Now we can drop that up and we can actually start setting the stop loss. And this is going to work in the opposite direction because it's going to truncate those ones that actually went down, but then could have come back up for a win. And these are these guys right here. They actually ended originally in a win, but now because they have a $175 stop loss, they're not going to make it back. And these ones, they stopped at 175, but they would have done actually better. So our win rate is going down, but look at this. Our typical win is going up a little bit higher, and our typical loss is a little bit lighter. So you can play around with this and figure out what you would like to do. There's recommended values here. And if you're curious about how this works with your way of playing, order a custom simulation with me. It's very, very easy. You can just go on to dicedata.info. Here is the QR code. Send me your information about how you play. I'll code up the simulation and I'll run it for you, and you'll have access to all of this information and do some experiments and see what works for the way that you play. And that way you'll go into the casino and you'll know exactly what you're getting into and you'll know how to optimize for your particular goals. So who should be playing this? So paycheck players, they are definitely going to prefer collect only because they get a couple percentage points higher in terms of their win rate. And of course, if they set that win goal, they can get above 50%. Jackpot hunters are going to lean towards collect and press. No surprise there because they want that chance at a big win. Table tourists is interesting because they can actually go either way. Comp grinder, not really loving this strategy. They're not getting that recycled money situation and time at the table. Jackpot hunter, no question, they want that collect and press version. I hope that you found this interesting. I really like to know what you think about this strategy. And if you want me to do more crapless videos, please let me know. I'd love to hear your strategies. You can submit them on dicedata.info. As always, thank you very much for watching and have good luck at the tables.